jury is present, sir.
Okay, very good. Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Burney.
Afternoon, Mr. Griffin.
Just I want to be sure we understand what you've done. You did analysis of various bank accounts, seeing deposits in and money out. Is that correct?
So for the tracing, it was specifically the alleged stolen funds. I would just trace them out as they went through the bank accounts using that first in, first out method.
I mean, did you analyze any accounts that were stolen, what you contend to be stolen funds were not deposited into?
There's probably one or two accounts, maybe stolen money didn't hit, but any account under Alex Murdaugh's name at Palmetto State Bank and Bank of America, those were the primary two accounts.
But I mean, you're aware that he earned income as a practicing attorney?
Yes, yes.
And did you segregate that monthly income from?
Yes. So what I would do is prior to these funds going into those accounts, using that first in, first out method, I would completely deplete whatever income or deposit was in that account prior to, so we could separate each check out.
And you, in your testimony here today, you for the most part, limited your analysis to the $792,000 of the Ferris fee. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the only tracing we went over to.
Okay. And then at the end, you testified about essentially Mr. Murdaugh's, I guess it was a analysis of liabilities versus assets.
Right.
About
so,
whether he had enough to pay A, B, and C.
Right. So what I did for the date of June 7th, the accounts we had, I looked at balances in addition to outstanding loans. So that's how I was able to determine that.
And that was just purely balances in financial accounts. Is that right?
That's correct.
And did that include any analysis of his 401k or retirement account?
No, in the balance sheet I had no, because those were in retirement accounts.
Okay.
So obviously, you have tax implications and penalties and fees associated with those.
And did that analysis include the value of any real estate holdings?
So I was just looking at outstanding, what he owed the bank.
Did that?
I didn't have up to date June 7th, 2021 appraisals for every land he owned.
Sure. And I think we all understood your answer, but your answer is no, it did not include an analysis of any equity in real estate holdings. Is that correct?
No, because I would not be able to determine that to the date.
And your analysis also did not include any interest he may have in real estate partnerships, correct?
Such as Redbeard and Zero United.
Well, let's start there. Redbeard and Zero United.
So I just had the loan statements and outstanding principal on that. And as we know, they were charged off, I believe, in 2012, and interest was accruing. But this is just a principal balance that I was looking at.
Right, but you didn't look to see what the value of Redbeard was and the value of United was.
No, I had no idea what they would have been in June 7th, 2021.
And were you aware that he was had equity interest in a real estate partnership that owned the PMPED law firm building in Hampton?
I became aware when I saw he was paid out of that account at the end in October, I believe. And then I would see occasionally, I called them rent checks. I think every month or so he would get a few thousand from that ownership.
But in your testimony of sort of a snapshot on June 7th, you didn't take into account the value of his interest in the PMPED law firm building, did you?
So I was looking at liquid assets, so would he have the ability that day to pay those amounts?
Okay. All right. And I take it then you also didn't take into account his ability to raise capital through borrowing money from Palmetto State Bank if he needed to.
So I was only looking at outstanding loans, so
Okay.
I can't comment whether or not he could. We know after the fact he got a loan from the bank, but at that time I wouldn't know what he's eligible for or not eligible for. If he wanted to take out an additional loan.
Well, we know before the fact that he had never been turned down for a loan at Palmetto State Bank, correct?
To my knowledge, no.
Right. And we know before the fact that he had paid Palmetto State Bank in over $4 million in interest payments. Don't we know that?
I've not calculated that myself, but if that's what you're representing.
Well, we know before the fact that the chairman of the board of Palmetto State Bank's position was if Alec Murdaugh wants a loan from the bank, we'll make it happen. You're aware of that, aren't you?
That's my understanding.
So there was no, and just to be clear, you weren't telling the jury that on June 7th, Mr. Murdaugh's financial freight train was about to go off to the ravine. That's not what you were telling this jury, is it?
I was just looking at the account balances, outstanding loans, the fact that money had to be borrowed to pay back the Chris Wilson fees.
And he borrowed money from his partner, Johnny Parker. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you know before the fact that Mr. Parker frequently loaned money to other partners in the firm because the cash flow in their business was, not great until the end of the year.
I know Johnny Parker loaned Alex money. I'm not sure about the other partners, but you are correct. He did loan him money.
Now, in your analysis of the $792,000, you testified that that a large percent of the money went to associates, and then the rest went to pay credit card bills, right?
Generally speaking, without getting into a granular level.
Sure. Well, can you generally tell me approximately how much money of the $792,000 was sent to Curtis Eddie Smith?
From my tracing, approximately $500,000
Of the 792?
of the 792. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. 1 second, Your Honor.
You direct.
Ms. Bernie, you indicated that you were looking at liquid assets on June 7th, 2021. Is that correct?
That is,
Did I understand your testimony a moment ago correctly that that's what you were looking at?
yes.
Mr. Bernie, do you own a home?
I do.
All right. So you've gone through the process of purchasing land before, is that correct?
A couple of times, yes, sir.
A couple times. When you were buying, or let me rephrase my question here. Did you ever sell any real estate?
I have once.
Was it an instant process or did it take some time?
It took months
Months.
from listing to closing. Yes.
So did you get the money for your real estate right when you sold it, or did it take all the way to closing to get that money?
Took all the way to closing.
So if Mr. Murdaugh needed money from his real estate interests through sell, would that have taken some time?
I imagine, yes.
Did I hear you correctly a moment ago in your testimony, or acknowledge in your testimony the possibility that Mr. Murdaugh paid over $4 million in interest to Palmetto State Bank on various loans?
That's what Mr. Griffin represented. I had not done the calculations myself.
As you indicated a moment ago, what was your aim again in tracing these funds?
Looking at their ultimate dispositions, where the money went to.
Did you start with particular instruments and then go from there?
I did.
And in analyzing where the funds from those instruments went, did a portion of those instruments go to loan payments
Yes.
at Palmetto State Bank?
Yes. Loan payments at Palmetto State Bank and to pay back loans from other individuals.
And did a significant portion of those funds go towards paying that $4+ million in interest to Palmetto State Bank?
Yes.
And did that represent a significant portion of where the stolen funds were ultimately disposed?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down. Your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Marion Proctor.